Today my topic is a hagstone. Here's a few examples. You can see through them, and these are holes that have formed. It's naturally perforated by water. Over centuries of flowing water hitting the stone, eventually it grooves a hole through the entire stone. You can peer through them, and according to legend, you can see the fairy realm or the wee folk or the she, as the Irish would call them. Hag is another word for witch, and so when we call them hagstones, it's kind of like a heathen term, hagtessa. You're pretty much calling it a witch stone. It's a witch amulet of sorts. I compiled this handy little folklore fact sheet all about the hagstone. I go further in depth about why it might be called an Odinstone, such as another folk tale about Odin creating a hole in a stone that comes from Sweden. So there are no hagstones available at my Etsy store, the Brazilian Boutique. Why would we call a hagstone an Odinstone? We know that Odin is the god of poetry, the stir of inspiration of the Norse folk. One theory is that we call them Odinstones because Odin lost an eye. He sacrificed an eye into a well of wisdom, and perhaps the stone looks like the eye of Odin. That's a nice theory, but I think there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. No pun intended. My theory is that they are little replicas of a stone that once stood and was extremely important to heathen tradition and custom. There's actually a stone in history called the Odinstone, and this was a megalith of the Orkney Islands, north of Scotland. It's a little archipelago of about 70 islands. 20 of them or so are inhabited by people. Orkney Island has been inhabited at least 8,500 years, so there's a lot of history, especially heathen or pagan history. In 875 CE, Orkney was colonized by Norway. So the Norse did settle here. You can see even a Viking presence with carvings of runes inside Maes Howe, which is nearby the Stones of Stenness. The Vikings sheltered there from a storm. So Maes Howe is east of the Stones of Stenness. The Neolithic Barn House settlement is also amazing, and it's a few minutes walk from the Stones of Stenness. It was inhabited between 3300 and 2600 BCE. So it's a long time ago. You have the Stones of Stenness in the Orkney Isles, and there were 11 standing stones in this circle. Interestingly, right by a bunch of other different sacred sites. It's just full of Neolithic magic sites that were used for rituals. You have things like Skara Brae, which is a perfectly preserved village people lived in thousands of years ago. I mean, these things on Orkney Island are older than when it's hundreds of years before the Egyptians even built the pyramids, just to put it into context. There's a great website that talks about the Oath of Odin that took place at the Stone of Odin, which is a little bit to the north of the Stones of Stenness. So all these ritual sites were very close in proximity. The Stone of Odin had a hole in it, except this was a big Odin stone that was about 8 feet tall, and when people would meet there, they'd have weddings or hand fastings. They would put their hands through the stone and take their vows, and if you broke this oath at the Odinstone, it was one of the worst things you could do. You'd probably be exiled, and they took the vow of Odin so seriously that there was even mention on here of a woman who became a widow, and she had to go travel to touch the hand of her husband's corpse in order to dissolve the vow. People would even bring their newborn children to pass them through the hole. If you think about it, with all these significant rituals going on, it makes sense that this was the first stone attacked by Mackay, the tenant farmer that lived there, and said it was destroying his crops, all the people gathering all the time. Around Yuletide of 1814, he took it upon himself to obliterate the Stone of Odin. Although the stone stood for 3,000 or so years, it took less than a day to topple it down. It's very telling that the church was sending a priest or some kind of missionary to check this out in around the 1600s because of the questionable activities going on there. The website of the Museum of Witchcraft here, it clearly talks about the use of hagstones for luck, a pagan belief, even in 1913. So this Museum of Witchcraft has different examples like a keychain that had a hagstone on it, or how the Irish would put hagstones on the horns of their cows so that they wouldn't have their milk stolen by the fairies. But in this case, this scallywag of a farmer decided to destroy the Odinstone, destroying one of the most sacred sites that these people had. As a reaction to Mackay tearing down these stones, the people, the natives there, were furious and they went berserk. There were many attempts to burn down Mackay's home even. We know that the Odinstone existed, and in May in 1988 they actually discovered the socket in the ground where it used to be. Part of the Odinstone survived up until the 1940s as a horse-powered mill shaft that the whole part was used, and eventually in the 1940s the mill owner's son destroyed the last remnant of the stone. Amazing that we still call little hagstones Odinstone. Thank you all for watching. I hope this has been somewhat interesting to you. I'm kind of fascinated by Odinstones myself, or elf cups as they're also called centuries ago. Slangafol.